Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Transfer Khanage, where we will be discussing all the talking points around Liverpool. Um, I would love to make this a regular show just for the name that I thought of today, A Tale of Two Mo's. Um, but unfortunately, these guys are way too busy to make it. Maybe I'll beg them for once a month, and that'll be fun. A Tale of Two Mo's. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we've got Mo and we've got Mo. I'll go to Mighty Mo up top first and ask him how he is. Mo, how are you? How was Glastonbury? And then we'll discuss the cricket in a bit.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm generally trending up. I mean, keeping with the theme, it's been the best of times, it's been the worst of times, depending upon what subject you want to look at. Glastonbury was amazing. It was still one of those things where I can close my eyes and look and watch a movie of myself, and I'll probably be able to do that forever. So that's great. I can box that off over there, and I will come back to it whenever I need to. But obviously, in general, how am I doing? At this point in the season, at the summer, it's very much the winds of change blowing through. And I'm like a lot of people, I'm at the whims of whatever is happening. So a little bit on edge, but still interested to see how we'll pan out.
Yeah, we haven't discussed her actually. Us three haven't discussed. The last time we were on, we were hopeful and we had started off well. And, we'll discuss it. It's good to have differences of opinions and insights, and I'm all about that. And then of course we've got Mo Chatra as well. Mo, straight away I've seen one question or point that we will definitely be getting into. Your eyes light up when you see numbers, and we see numbers. And Mo's eyes have already lit up. TG says we've spent 95 million, brought in 60 million, and got 50 million off the wages. We're in profit. Absolutely no excuse to spend. He's got in there early. Mo, how you doing? How's 1 month away from the season starting feel?
Yeah, it's been nice respite, I suppose. The season that finished was clearly not one of our better ones of recent times, and many frustrations, a lot of blaming and pointing fingers here, there, and everywhere. So it's been nice to kind of just take a step back and focus on other things, like try not to burn the house down, which I nearly did half an hour ago. Trying to make a steak, and it went horribly wrong.
How can you go? Okay, I'm not a master chef, right? I'm not no master chef, but how did you nearly burn the house down by making? Surely it's quite simple. Okay, I might get slaughtered in the comments. Calm down. It's not as easy as that. Well, okay. Layman's steak, very layman's steak is marinate it, put all the herbs, and then slap it on the grill, right?
I forgot the bit about the marinating, and I forgot about it being on the grill, and too busy reading up tweets and all sorts, and you know it, smoke everywhere.
Nearly an analogy for the current state of Liverpool.
I was literally thinking the same thing. It's like there's a metaphor in there somewhere.
There's a metaphor somewhere, we done the first marination part, and everyone thought, okay, McAllister, then added a few herbs, Sobozolai, and then as we put in the grill, kind of took our eye off the ball, and then the Saudis came in
with the oil, literally.
Yeah, smoke everywhere. And now everyone thinks the house is burning down. We've got no midfielders, even though we've bought two very able midfielders. But it is what it is. At least you're here, you're safe, and you haven't burnt the house down, which is great. I hope those sofas are not flammable. I'm telling you, that'd be crazy. Mo, have you been watching the cricket? I've been watching the cricket. Sorry, just very off topic. I was supposed to ask you off screen, but I might as well start you on screen. Pakistan won, England Ashes, England coming back. This could be the mother of all series. Ashes never disappoint. They just never disappoint. This could be mad.
And I've been watching it. Obviously, I've been watching it. Right? But today's possibly been my favorite day so far, because all the other days, there's been ebbs and flows. This team takes the lead. The other team takes the lead. Yeah. None of that today. Today is just England. No, we're just going to lean on you. He's going to lean on you and lean on you. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, hopefully we'll be back in this series and can go and win it.
This could be. This is a proper.
You know, sounds almost poetic.
Oh, this could be unreal. This could be unreal. Mo, you're a bit of a cricket fan, aren't you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mad, isn't it? This Ashes are like just when you think England are dead and buried, and the Ashes, this Australia walkover. This could turn around to be an epic ending to the summer.
I just really hope that weather holds up and we finish to the match, and if we level it and then go into the final one with all to play for the Oval. Oh my word!
The atmosphere. South London will be.
Yeah, I might have to take a trip down. If honestly,
make sure you let me know when you do, because I'm thinking I haven't been to a test match in bloody years, 2020s and one days and all not. But let me know if you're up for that, especially if England level it, because then, oh man, make sure we get down there together with our brollies. But using a cricket analogy, guys, going into the Liverpool situation, I guess I could say we started off. If we look at it like a 2020, we started off like a brilliant opening stand, magnificent 10 and over, right? And then a couple of big wickets have slowed us down. And we're kind of just regrouping. The middle order needs to regroup and finish strongly. How's that for a quick cricket? Mo, because Mo, it's true. McAllister and Szoboszlai, great opening. And then, you know, the bombshells that have been discussed. But it's good to get your opinion on it because I haven't asked your opinion. And then the bombshells of the Fabinho and Henderson, one we could take both. Is difficult to comprehend and work out. This wasn't planned.
No.
This is like a shock to the system. And now we need to get over it and recover and finish strongly.
That's the key. We need to get over it quickly. And we can't let the potential emotional upheaval of the squad get in the way of replenishing it. Because, yes, this was unplanned in as much as this very much Klopp wanted to go into the season having access to both those players. How much they were going to play was probably up for debate. But the fact is that he planned to have them, and now suddenly he hasn't got them. However, I do think that the what are we going to do to replace Fabinho and Henderson plan had already been put into, like, they'd already started talking about it. Like, it wasn't like they were taking a player who we were expecting to have for the next 4 or 5 years. I think they both knew that they were going to be replaced. So rather than necessarily tearing up the plan, it's maybe accelerating the plan a little bit. So you'd like to think that they're not completely on the hop. Like, they do have a few ideas in that respect. But yeah, it's not ideal when you consider who has already left the midfield. I think traditionally, midfield under a Jurgen Klopp team is still a hard job. It's still something that takes a long while to kind of bed in and get used to. And we are removing our margin for error on that by removing Fabinho in particular, because whoever comes in now and plays in that role, they're pretty much going to have to hit the ground running, particularly as Stefan Bajcetic isn't fit yet. We don't know if he'll be fit to start the season. And everyone else who may well be a fix from within, we don't know how they're going to be. Obviously, there's talk of McAllister playing there. He's just got in the building. Talk of Curtis Jones playing there. Yes, he did it for an England under-21, but it's different in the Premier League. So there are a lot of questions that are still being answered. And I kind of feel for Klopp a little bit because you said before, could we have predicted it? Probably not, or at least not. I mean, let's look. When Ronaldo went to Saudi Arabia, there was no talk of a massive influx at that point, was there? We were all basically clowning him. And at that point, there was no, okay, this is the coming force. That was a one-off. So maybe there were people who could have taken him more seriously at that point. But even then, I think you'd have to have a time machine really to have said that this is exactly what's going to happen. And so, yeah, it's up to the club to be proactive. And these new plans that they've put in place with the new sporting director, that's going to be the ultimate test of this relationship. I mean, I know there's the break at the end of August where they can both say, is it working? And if they both agree, it will continue. There's no better test between now and then. Like literally, by the time we get to August, they will know if they are a workable scouting and recruiting team or not.
This is the ultimate test for Big George, isn't it? And Mo Chatra, I'm going to come to and say, Mo Stewart talks about accelerating the plans, being proactive. FSG have got a tendency to pretty much do the opposite in terms of not be proactive, but reactive. And if ever there was a reactive situation, it's this: losing, whether they were in their prime, and we know they weren't, whether at the height of their powers, we know they weren't, losing your skipper, your vice captain, and your main DM, who's been your sort of beacon, like literally your lighthouse for the last 5-6 years. That is major upheaval. I would go as far as saying we need to react, and it's a matter of urgency. Would you share those sentiments?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, what I would say is we should never have been in this position in the first place. You know, with proper succession planning, bringing in at least, well, ideally a midfielder, young midfielder every summer, 2019 onwards. You know, we wouldn't have been in this scenario where we're losing, 5-6 midfielders in one summer, including all of the senior ones nearly. Because obviously there's still rumours, there's still talk, there's still mutterings that Thiago could go. And, if he goes, that's a massive blow. Albeit, obviously, his injury record is far from great. But yeah, we've got to react. I mean, I think that, there's been a lot of talk about, Lavia. And, I think that even when there was the expectation that Henderson and Fabinho would stay, we were still being linked with the player. It was still being said that, we'd like to bring him in. We see tremendous potential. He can perhaps be the understudy to Fabinho this coming season with a view to then replacing him in the next couple of years. And I think that, we are still interested in that player. But with losing 2 players now, surely we've got to bring in a couple.
Well, this is it. Because you're absolutely spot on. Lavia, it seems, and we pretty much know now that it seemed prior to this Saudi influx of cash into the club, and we're going to address that now. Prior to this, the plan, it seems, was Lavia and then a top quality centre back like Colwell. And that was it. So Szoboszlai and McAllister, nice and early. Let's get the sales out the way. Not the 2 that we wanted, but sort of your Kellers, your Simicas, who else? Maybe Philip. Yeah, your fringe players, whatever. And then get one big hitter, centre back, and then a Lavia, so he could learn under Fabinho for one last hurrah for Fabinho, and then Lavia would be able to step in. That seemed like the logical, and we thought, okay, we've been good planners in the past. Looks like we're planning again, because that would have been a lovely, I think we all would have agreed that would have been a lovely summer window. Mo, that's not the case now. So I beg the question to you now, Mo. What's the plan now, Mo? Mo Stewart.
Oh, sorry, you mean me. Sorry. You're going to have to do this.
I know. Do you know what? Do you know what? It's going to be one of those hands on the buzzers. So whoever speaks first goes for it.
All right. Well,
what's the plan? I'm going to ask you the question. What is the plan, Mo? Because everyone wants to know. This is it now. What's the plan now?
It's a very good question, and I don't specifically have the answer to it. But one thing I do know is that the plan has got to have changed, because I do think that the plan was for at least one of Fabinho or Henderson to start the first game against Chelsea. When you consider, like I said, about Bajcetic being not back in training yet, I don't think Thiago is fully back from his hip injury yet. Obviously, Curtis and Harvey went deep. And we've seen in previous summers when players go deep in the international tournaments, Klopp does try to ease them back in. I feel like he might not have that option this time. So if it was the idea previously of having a Lavia in the building, learning and beginning to share that role with Fabinho, he probably wouldn't have started the first game. Whereas now we probably need someone who can start the first game. Whether that is still Lavia, that is the question. Or whether or not the club feel like they need to do something different. So I do think what this will mean is that whereas previously the two midfielders replacing Henderson and Fabinho would have been young, building through, up to being able to kind of hit their peak level on Liverpool's terms. The fact that you're losing them both on top of the experience of the others makes me think that maybe one of them needs to be a little bit more experienced. Now, whether that's the way that Liverpool look at it, I don't know. But when you see like the links to the likes of the Bayern guys, personally, I don't think Kimmich is going everywhere, but the links are there. Someone mentioned Marco Verratti. I think it was in the comments. Those are the kind of guys who are of the experience, of the stature to be able to go in and start straight away. Now, there are issues with both of those specifics, but I see that there's a different kind of pool that Liverpool reportedly going in. And that wouldn't surprise me. I feel like I understand that plan. Simply because, whereas in previous summers, there was the perfect guy, the one who we knew we wanted, who would fit the bill. It was
there's not a clear target now. This is one of the first times in our recruitment history that we haven't got a clear and defined player in place. We had Jude, we had Virgil, we had Alisson, we know, but we don't have one now.
The problem with that, and in some ways it's good, because it means that there are lots of players out there in theory who can improve the squad. So the chances of us getting at least one of them increase. But the problem with that also, if these are players who aren't your A1 top of the list absolutes, as we've seen in previous years, are they going to be willing to pay the money that it costs to get them? Are you going to say, well, I mean, Chik Takore is a very good footballer, but is he 80 million footballer or is he 50 million? It's like, the only reason he's 80 million is because if we were doing this last year, we'd have got him for 18. So those kind of things have kind of set us back in the past, and maybe FSG have seen more value in doing nothing than doing the wrong something. That might be an issue this time because we kind of need to do something. So all of these things are going to be things, obviously, that Jörg Schmadtke is going to be at the head of, or at least involved in. But I think there's an argument that Liverpool had done a long way in the first part of the window to say all of our mental scar tissue of windows past should be put to one side. But then something like this happens, and it's still there. Like the potential for apathy, or maybe not even apathy, I wouldn't call it that, or just, caution becoming a bit of leaving us short. We've seen that before. So I hope we don't see it again.
And this segues into Mo Chatra, because Mo Stewart is spot on. It does. We have history, or we have recent history of leaving us short and whatever, and just playing it safe. We already knew that investment was going to be there, but with the sudden investment, inadvertently from Saudi Pro League, to the tune of 52 million, to the tune of how many wages? Well, I'll let you sort of get into that. Now is it added pressure on FSG to spend, or is it a bonus for them? And now they've got no choice, no excuses, no sympathy, but to go out there and not only spend what they were intending on spending, i.e. your Lavias, your Colwills, but now go and get us that extra player that will replace a Fabinho and a Henderson as well. there simply is no hiding place for FSG now, is there? Especially with this, as I said, surge of funds coming in.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, right. So there's several things to just cover here. First of all, fans can sometimes conflate funds being available and spending. Just because funds might be there to be spent, it doesn't mean that the FSG approach will result in a number of incomings. So what I mean by that is that we know that FSG's way is to be very rigid when it comes to valuing a player and trying to secure that player if it meets the valuation or is in the ballpark. And if we feel that a selling club is, for want of a better phrase, taking the piss, then we walk away. We've seen that time and time again. So funds might be there to be spent, but if we think that every club that we go and speak to is asking for way too much, then the FSG way is to walk away. Now, I think this market in this summer in particular has gone completely loopy. And it's not just about the money coming in from Saudi. You can look at Burnley spending 90 million on the academy goalkeeper from Man City. 90 million for a player that, has hardly any first team experience. And so therefore, the market is, almost losing all sense of perspective in a way. So what do FSG do? Do they try and rigidly stick to their approach, or do they try and adapt and accept it is a warped market and it might stay that way and become even worse in the years to come? Or do we carry on rigidly sticking to something and then missing out? Because, where we talked about falling short and not getting enough business done in years past, that was often the reason why, where we were very picky about the players we wanted. And when we approached the selling clubs to try and suss out what the price might be, the price that we were told was too high and we walked away. So I think FSG have to be more flexible now, more pragmatic, because there's a clear and obvious need to get business done. And if we don't get that business done, the value of their key asset, Liverpool Football Club, I think will potentially reduce. There's no hiding place. You're right.
There's no hiding place, Mighty Mo. And obviously, with the influx of cash, as I says, and the saving of wages, they must. There's no option but to invest in the playing squad. We know off the pitch we're in a brilliant state of affairs. Jurgen Klopp made a lot of noises in terms of how much change he anticipated. Of course, we all agree that this much change wasn't expected, but it's very, very important that we make those changes now. And of course, like both of you have said, and we've seen, we're now approaching players that a season ago or seasons gone by, we would have very comfortably gone to the likes of Southampton, the likes of Crystal Palace, the likes of whoever, and said, here's 40, which is our sweet spot. 40 to 50 million has been FSG's sweet spot throughout their tenure, apart from the Virgil and Alisson when we went mad. But we're not in a position to do that now because everyone knows our position. Everyone knows if they bide their time, Saudi might come in for one of their players for that kind of fee. We've got no choice but to pay that fee. But I come to the first name that I'm going to give you, and you mentioned him already, the fella at Crystal Palace. Now, I don't know if you watched him at Lens, when he was at Lens in France. I think he's a very good player. He's come to the Premier League, and in that opening, he bossed us both times pretty much when we played him. But Mo, they want 70 million. What do we do now?
See, and this is why it gets tricky. And this is one of the things about the transfer market that you can never really fully predict. Is that we are looking at trying to buy two central midfielders that will total maybe 4 if you want to include them all, central midfielders, in a summer where one of them's already gone for 100 million and another one is having his price set by that one. And the players who are being replacing him at that clubs are having their price set by that one. So it's not even really Crystal Palace that are setting the price high. It's Brighton, it's West Ham, it's Arsenal. And we just happen to be at the wrong time. But this is what happens when you wait.
Yeah.
So the idea of Liverpool saying, well, this is just the worst year to buy centre mids. Maybe we'll get one and wait. There's no guarantee that it's going to be better. It could get worse. So I think you got to kind of cop for it to a certain amount.
Yeah.
I think if you think and it's going to be about whether or not the guys in the scouting department who identified Chet Doucouré can convince Klopp that he is good enough, that he can go and say to FSG, yes, this guy's worth the money, go get him. That's basically the crux of who we get, because I don't think we're going to get a great player without overpaying. That's just certainly not from a Premier League club. Now, it's a shame because, as I say, Doucouré went for 18 to Palace last summer. But no one was really looking at him in that way at Lens because he was playing alongside Seko Fofana, who's like, he's an eye-catching guy.
Who's just gone to Saudi club, hasn't he?
The Saudi club, yes. But it's difficult because all of the normal rules you would expect around transfers, where you're kind of negotiating with one club, then they try to bring other players involved to try and bump up the price or get a bidding war, and then you kind of have a tete-a-tete, and then you compromise in the middle. As you say, there is this outlier threat of clubs who can just come in out of nowhere and potentially say, well, I'm just going to pay that. So it becomes a more volatile market. And if you're naturally cautious, as our owners have been, it can be quite even more, frightening is probably not the right word, because they shouldn't be scared, but it kind of is the right word, if you see what I mean. Trepidation is up high. Like, in the same way, just to make a comparison, I think the part of the reason why Bayern are struggling to get up to the price that is required to pay for Harry Kane is that they've just bought a forward from the Premier League and they thought they got a great deal on him, and then it turned out that he wasn't that good. So they can't afford to make those many high-profile mistakes. Very few clubs can still afford to make high-profile mistakes. So it all becomes really, really important that you get the right person at the right time. Do we trust the team that we've got at the moment? I'm still saying yes. I'm still saying that I trust them to identify the right people. But then it becomes identifying the right player and then getting the deal done. It's part A and it's part B, and they are both as important as each other. And you can't have one without the other. Or if you do, it's almost no good.
Mighty Mo says, I can't even call you Little Mo because you're huge. People don't know. People don't know that, you're very fond of not only football and finance, but wrestling. We'll address that another time, maybe. And you've got a wrestler's build as well. He's massive. But Mighty Mo says we can't afford to make mistakes. Or Liverpool in the past, FSG have been scared to make mistakes. We have to take a risk now. Can we afford to make a mistake, especially with the financial situation that I've asked you? We find ourselves now. Have we got leeway to be more brave now? Can you explain to me how much money we've saved now through wages and transfer funds? Because we were anticipating Kelleher, Tsimikas, Phillips, maybe bringing us 35 to 40 million maybe. And we thought if FSG give us another 100 on top, 150, well, we've just got, as I said, 52 million absolute bonus out of nowhere. We didn't anticipate 40 million for Fabinho, and we did not anticipate our captain going as well for 10, 12 million. We have that now. Mo, there's money there and there's wages being saved there, right?
Yeah, there definitely is. Just on the wages front, right? So we lost the 4 players on a free in the summer.
But their wages,
it looks like Nat Phillips is on his way out. Then we've got Fabinho and Hendo on their way out as well. Bear in mind, the wages that you hear these players earning are only part of their overall earnings. Liverpool Football Club pay very, very significant amounts of bonuses. So if you hear about a player earning a couple $100,000 a week, when you add the bonuses in, you're talking north of 300,000. So Henderson's latest contract was paying 200,000 a week. Granted, the season just finished. We didn't win any silverware. But even with bonuses just for purely appearances and things like that, he would have been north of 250 a week. And in the season before, probably topping 300,000 a week with all the bonuses to get to Champions League final, etc. So stripping all of that out, the savings that we're making, and the fact that we aren't paying any Champions League bonuses in this coming season,
yes,
the wage bill will reduce, forgetting the players that have come in and the players that hopefully will come in, £100 million saving on the wage bill. Wow. That is huge. So if you talk about the basic wages, the bonuses, and the Champions League bonuses, the whole of the rest of the team would have earned, but they won't earn this coming season, 100 million. Obviously, on top of that, you then have to add back in the wages for the new incomings. And at the moment, we've only got two of them. And they're probably on about 120k a week.
I was going to say, notoriously, we know we start them off at a very reasonable wage, so to speak.
Yeah, that's it. So that's what we're looking at. So, yes, we haven't got Champions League football, but the wage bill will be the smallest it has been since the 16-17 season. So that then frees up the money to go out and spend on incomings. But it's all about getting everything right. It's not just as easy as saying, right, let's go and sign someone. It could be a variety of things. It could be you disagree over wages, or you could disagree over the agent's fees, or the dad wants to be paid, or the uncle wants to be paid, the brothers want to be paid, all sorts. So, there's all sorts of complexities to these things. But if you get the deal done,
is that Wi-Fi mine?
And I think, and I'm going to be bold in saying this, I think that the money is there to get a marquee signing, because bear in mind, look who has spent 105 million on a midfield, on a DM, Arsenal. We, over the last 5 years, have earned significantly more, hundreds of millions more compared to Arsenal. Now, granted, their wage bill has been a lot smaller than ours, but, they've been spending like money's going out of fashion. And they've gone and spent that kind of money. We are, from a revenue perspective, one of the top 3-4 biggest clubs in the world. So if they can do it, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to either.
Go on.
The only thing I'd say that goes well in Arsenal's favour is basically, unlike John Henry, Stan Kroenke's other teams have been doing really well. So the St. Louis Rams won the Super Bowl. Denver Nuggets won the championship. So his company, his conglomerate, has been earning a lot more money than it had been previously over the last 2 to 3 years. So I think that probably does have a little bit to do with it. But you are right. Liverpool have a pool of money that they can use for wages. I think the most fascinating thing about this for me, two things we talk about, because obviously the guys, McAllister and Szoboszlai, they're on good wages, but they're not coming in at the top bracket, because Liverpool have only really done that one time, and that was for Thiago. But obviously there are a couple of rather pricey renewals, because Trent still ends it would be over the course of this season, you'd expect them to do the Trent deal, because when it gets to next summer, he'll have 1 year left. And so will Virgil. Now, obviously, giving Trent the money that he wants is probably now a lot easier than it maybe would have been previously. Whether or not that happens with Virgil, that I don't know. I still feel like there might be some disparity.
Conversation to be had there.
Yeah, but another one, talking about the wages that we've got now, I do think that was the main reason we pulled out the Mason Mount deal. And now that we've got this extra leeway with these two going, if he was still at Chelsea, I feel like we probably would have been able to do it. I feel like we probably would have given him that money. So it's just it's interesting the way that things kind of overlap and the way that timings may not always add up. But I think that Liverpool will. I like the idea of what Mo was saying. I do think that Liverpool will have the room to go for a big hitter. Whether that ends up being someone like a Pavard who's been linked, or someone from a big club who's been on high Champions League wages, or a good up and coming player who is being looked at by everybody, and you need to give a really good wage in order to secure him. But we now have the ability to do those things. The ability. Hopefully we've got the ability, we've got the motivation. We just need the actual practice.
800 of you in here, and apparently I've been told 21 away from 200 likes. Like we have got the financial king here, Mo Chatra, and he will tell you that doesn't add up. Like 800 and 200 likes. I mean, actually, we don't even need his expertise to know that doesn't add up. So smash the likes, subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you follow the guys on their socials and on all the platforms they're on. Give them the support that they deserve. I'm going to stick with you, Mighty Mo. In that case, then, you said that it's all about timing as well. Another player that's very strongly linked. Well, I don't know if he's strongly linked, but I know of definite interest of Palhinha of Fulham. Mm-hmm. Now, Fulham have slapped a ridiculous price on him as well. It seems like everyone everywhere knows every DM is 60 to 70 million pounds, regardless of age, size, quality, caliber, whatever. But my eyes lit up when you said timing, because this is one of those deals that might work in our favor in terms of timing, because today news emerges that one of the major Saudi clubs have come in for their manager. Now, if Silva decides to take up the lucrative offer that he's been offered, does that, in your opinion, because from what I understand, Palhinha was very much Silva's guy. You got to remember the Portuguese connection, everything else. If your manager leaves and then simultaneously Liverpool Football Club and Jurgen Klopp are coming calling, that could work in our favor. So, A, does that help us? And B, are you a fan of the player?
Okay, we'll start with A. Yes, it does help us for quite a few reasons, I think. Because like you say, he would have very much been enamored with Marco Silva, and Marco Silva being there for the long term would have very much been part of his plan with staying with Fulham. But I do think that in his mind, Fulham was never going to be the club he stayed at forever, because obviously he's come to the Premier League at a later age than most players do in his position. So maybe he's got less time if he wants to move up the food chain, so to speak. And then you look at the prospects of Fulham. We've already mentioned the manager makes a massive difference. Currently, their star striker says he never wants to play for them again. So if you're João Palhinha and you're thinking, well, Mitrovic is going or staying and kicking up a fuss, and the manager's going, suddenly this looks like a very different football team. So from that perspective, yes, it does help Liverpool. But in terms of getting the player out of the club at a decent price, no. In fact, I think he actually works against us for that same reason. Unfortunately, but that's just my feeling. That's just my feeling on the situation, because if they get to that and it looks like they're going to have to leave, and it looks like they're going to have to start rebuilding, because without Silva and Mitrovic and Palhinha for starters, that would be a massive rebuild. And if that is still on their mind, particularly seeing as all of the 40 million that's been going to Marco Silva is going to be going to Marco Silva and not Fulham. So yeah, they're going to be trying to get the most money they can out of their asset. Like, I don't know. Maybe if Silva goes, maybe they relent and they let Mitrovic go for 45, 50 million. And then they used to look that money to invest and say to Palhinha, no, this is what we're going to do now, blah, 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 blah. But I just think that if I'm Palhinha and I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, well, I wasn't going to be here forever, and maybe now this has kind of accelerated that. Do I like the player? I do. I think if you're looking for a combination of skills in the midfield. He does have a lot of things that none of the other current Liverpool midfielders have. He's got that. He's not only got the energy, the physical presence, but he's got the durability and the intelligence to be able to be effective without necessarily having to be here, there, and everywhere. He's got discipline. What's the word? Positional discipline. So he can get you goals, but he's getting you goals from set pieces. He's not wandering off up the pitch and leaving you wide open in midfield. So from that perspective, yeah, I think he's a player who could do us the job. I do think, again, he would be one who would be like, you'd get him, and then maybe you look at getting a player who can develop, because I do think that as much as 28, he's a young 28 in terms of the legs and the actual minutes he's played.
Yep.
But 28 is still 28. Like, I mean, I've not played a lot of Premier League minutes, but I still feel like when I was 28, I probably would have been, not that great. So it's still 28, if you see what I mean.
I think you make a good point there. Look, it is 28, but there is differences in 28. Like I gave the example on yesterday's show. Like sort of, for example, if we look at Theo Walcott, Wayne Rooney, the likes of these who started playing when they were 12 at the very highest level.
Exactly.
Yeah. So therefore, if you forward it now to sort of, he comes in the category where again, the example I used was the Vardys, the Ian Wrights. Maybe you've got he's gone by late developers. Even the Harry Kane, like Harry Kane's pretty much a late developer. I like the Palhinha shout. I know Liverpool fans are absolutely divided, more so on the no, not to Palhinha. But I think this is just a feeling. I think there's a deal if they just lower it a little bit to be done with him. I think him alongside a less experienced, of course, the project Lavia would be ideal. I want to come to you, Mo Chatra, and say, what would you do in that sense? Because there's a couple of ways of looking at it. We know, as I said, the plan was a centre-back and a midfielder, project midfielder, and then we're good to go. But now, as I said, with those players that have gone, what do you do now? So do you now still pursue like for like, 2 players for 2 players, Fabinho and Henderson, that are gone, and still look for that centre-back? Or is there a tactical change, tactical tweak within the squad, within the personnel that we've got, i.e. namely Trent Alexander-Arnold? Is there something that you'd ponder? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. No, I'm not in favour of that. I think Trent's new kind of position where in defensive passages of play, he slips into that kind of right back position. When we're on the front foot attacking, he then moves into that inverted kind of role to form that midfield box. I think that's a role that suits him well. If we ask him to essentially replace Fabinho, I just don't think that will make the most of his abilities. And I don't think defensively he's quite as strong in terms of anticipation and things like that. So I would not be in favour of that. I would much prefer to look for somebody who's an accomplished DM. And my personal approach, now that I feel we need two midfielders, the reason I mentioned the fact that I think we need to make a marquee signing is because I've got a player in particular that is in mind, who shares my initials, MC, Moises Caicedo. Look, if we're talking and we're even considering spending £70 million on Decor from Palace, why not just go up another 10-15 million, slap it on the table in front of Mr. Bloom and say, right, there you go, we want your player. Reunited with Alexis Mack, why not? I think he'd be a transformative signing. I think, he's a young player, 21, 22, got immense potential, has absolutely the potential to become a bona fide world-class talent. And, if we get him in, yes, I know he's fluttering his eyelids at Chelsea, But
This is my only thing about him. Everything else that you've said about him, I've been screaming for, because I think he's a transformative player. For whatever club he goes to, he will elevate them. Absolutely. And I'm jealous of whoever gets him. But I don't like the way he's open to anyone and everyone. That's my only thing. Or am I being...
Look, he's ready for bigger things, but I think he can certainly be lured by the Klopp hug and a nice salary and the chance to play with some of those world-class players. So, I don't think that he's got his mindset completely on Chelsea. And how many times have we seen players look like it's inevitable they're going to one club and they end up somewhere else? Sorry, Mo.
No, I agree. That is a possibility. It's not done until it's done. In that respect, Caicedo is a funny one though, because like if you look at it from a certain perspective, you can say, well, this guy, like you say, he's got all of the tools. You just look at him and you think this guy's going to be a fantastic player, but he's still 21, and he's basically played for a year and a half. So, and he's played a year and a half at the same club, and who have a very, very specific stylistic pattern. Who, admittedly, if we were having him and McAllister, it'd be easier to see him kind of bed in. But I think that's a problem too, because we have to remember, we did get a good deal from McAllister. We got a very good deal. Considering the way that Brighton have done business with literally everyone else, we did a very good deal.
I know where you're going with this.
If you're Brighton, you absolutely don't want them both to be in the same club.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
We're probably the only team that I can think of that have done Brighton over. Like Brighton usually are the ones that do everyone. Cucurella comes to mind, Basuma comes to mind, Ben White comes to mind. Everyone pretty much else. We're the only team that have found a little clause in Alexis McAllister, who's worth, in the current market, if we look around now, he's a 65, 70 million pound player as well. World Cup winner, peak of his career, Premier League experience. We paid 35 million. Brighton will say, stay away from us.
How do we even know that part of getting that for that price wasn't that we would agree not to bid for Caicedo as well? That happens. Happen. But I just think it would be great. As a footballer, I think it would be fantastic. I just don't think it's the kind of move that Liverpool are going to do right now. I don't know. I wish that we were able to be as flexible to be like, no, we're going to muscle our way in on this guy.
Well, this is what I mean about the aggressive nature that we need to take on now. This is what I mean about the proactive. This is what I mean about the urgent action required. Now, I know we have a history of not doing any of that and taking it calm, not panicking. But I think there's a slight amount of panic if nothing gets done in the next 10 days, I'd say, because that was a bolt out of the blue, those two. I don't care what anyone says, and I'm a very level-headed guy. I'd like to think when it comes to calm down, we don't just need to go wild and go crazy out there in the market. We know what we're doing. I feel as though right now we're in a state of little bit of confusion. But I was asking your opinion on the Trent Alexander, and I put it to the ultimate platform to get a valued opinion, Twitter. Twitter polls are the ones, and I asked the question: is it time to make Trent a full-time defender? And it pretty much shows you that everyone's undecided. Mighty Mo Chatra saying nope. He doesn't want him moved from this evolved role. So still right back to start off with, but inverted right back. What's your thoughts? Because the poll, over 6,000 votes, pretty much suggests it's unsure.
I would probably want to, I would agree with Mo. I want to see the hybrid a little bit more. I want to see more of it. I think the idea of him no longer being a right back at all at this point, I think it's still premature. I mean, it probably appeals to Trent because it's the best of what he gets to do without the worst of what he has to do. But I do think that it's something that we are going to have to, if we want to make it work as best possible, it needs to be an evolution. It needs to be a okay, this is what I'm doing now. I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm getting more devastating with it. Okay, then you get the period where teams are starting to plan against it. They're starting to work against it. That's when you evolve into the next point. I think that he's still very young. He's still got loads of his football career ahead of him. He's not in any rush to suddenly become a midfield. Or if I was Klopp, I wouldn't be in any rush to put him into a midfield, because the other thing we have to acknowledge, and I said this on another show earlier today, part of the reason why he's in midfield is because last year our midfield was garbage. Like, if we'd have bought Tchouaméni 12 months ago, would we have seen Trent in midfield this season at all? I'm not sure. Like, so if we get to a situation with these players who we're eventually going to buy this summer, where suddenly our midfield's looking a lot more sorted, and suddenly Trent at right back no longer looks like a liability, but it looks like the greatest right back in the world, as he was when we were winning all the trophies, suddenly we don't need it to be such a rush. So I think personally, the best option is to have flexibility, have the ability for him to be this, for him to be that, and for the opponents not to know which is coming. And the only problem with that is it does make it harder when you're recruiting players to go in and around them. It's almost like the more fixed he is, the easier it is to build around as a kind of a squad. But I don't know. Like,
I put it out there because I think preseason will be something to keep an eye on, because if he continues to play every single game or pretty much every single game in midfield, lads, then it would suggest to me that there is definite a shift in thinking and planning. But again, preseason we will see that in preseason. And also, I heard again today or heard yesterday another inquiry for another defender stroke right back. I know Benjamin Pavard has been linked. I know we made an effort to get Timber before Arsenal blew up. We bid far less for him. And today, Mo Stewart, I told you before the show the name of the player. I don't know if you can pronounce it, please, because I made an absolute tits here and you didn't have a clue who I was talking about. All right. So if you'd like to say the name properly, like how it's supposed to be said.
Sorry, you mean the Ajax fellow?
Yes. I made an absolute tits here of it.
No. His name is Vench, isn't it? And you call him Dench.
All right, well, maybe I was thinking about my good old days, and you know what I mean. But
the point is though, right backs, and the point you made about the preseason is interesting because yes, it's getting Trent reps there, getting him more comfortable, and it was noticeable. Wrench, thank you, Adam. It was noticeable the fact that while he was playing in midfield, he was doing times where he was dropping in between the centre halves and picking up the ball and doing proper DM stuff, but also being outright and doing the inverted fullback stuff. So he was doing bits of both. And it's interesting to see him do it in pre-season. But he had Conor Bradley playing a right back. And I mean, there's Conor Bradley and there's Joe Gomez. And it's like, if you're telling me that those are going to be the right backs, I'm telling you, that's probably not going to be enough. So if we get a right back in the building, then yes, I feel like that's kind of the sign of saying that we are definitely going to be hearing him in midfield more than in defense. But I still think that it's too early to make the change for permanent. I think he needs to kind of evolve into it and kind of find his niche within it.
Fair enough. We're going to address the super chats now to end the show and get your points and questions in for the lads as well. If you have something particular that you want to ask them. Vegan Sports Bar says, Malchatra, surely VVD for captaincy now. Is that a given? Or is there any hot takes that you would suggest or nominate? Or who gets the vice captaincy? I guess that's probably the most. I think Virgil's captain. Who gets the vice?
Yeah. I agree, Virgil. I'd like vice captain to be Trent, perhaps. Or you could argue Mo, but I like Trent in terms of succession planning.
You love your succession planning.
I do.
Skip to my Lou says, big up Grizz panel. That Mocha hit different. Yeah, my love affair with Mocha has started, and that's what he's referencing. Yes, I'm cheating on tea. I've gone to Mocha now. breaking news. Here we go. Mo says, another Mo, tale of three Mo's. Mo says, Florentino Luis is already a defensive monster, 6'1", 23, in ball dominate, team Champions League experience and an excellent passer, 50 mil, and get his buddy Inacio for 38 million. Mo Stewart, thoughts?
I'd say that if 50 million is the price, then that's a good price.
It's a massively great price, but I don't think that's a good price.
No, I don't think it's so either. I feel like Benfica have seen too many of their players become superstars for them to let them go for that cheap. And if you,
but then, you know your theory about the Brighton, though, Mo. All right, you know the theory about Brighton. They've done us with Nunes, right? 75. Maybe they want to do a favor.
No, hey,
Nunes supporters,
some kind of discount here.
Nunes supporters, before you go mad, it will be effective. But it's quite open that I'm not a fan of Nunes, the player, but I think he'll be effective for Liverpool. I just didn't think he was a 85 million. 85 million.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get a little discount for Florentino Luis now.
We'll see. No, but genuinely, I do think that he would be someone who could come in and fit the bill. And he would be the best of, he would be good in both as much as that I would be comfortable with him starting the first game against Chelsea. But I also think that he's a player who can develop into a much better player over the course of his time at the club. So if he was the guy we went with, I'd be like, okay, great, let's see how it comes. And it's funny because we do talk about money like it's ours, and it's not. No. So in theory, it shouldn't matter. But I think it's because we know the breadth of what we need to do. So it's almost like the more you spend on this, the less you have for that. And it's trying to make those decisions. It's tough. But
he's my choice as well. Absolutely my choice. Florentino Luis Mochatra, I know much about him. Have you got who's your choice? Your choice is Caicedo. It's not happening. I know you want to go to town on FSG for that. But will you also go to town if we don't spend on a midfielder like Luis then? Because 60 million, I'd say, gets him.
Well, it may get him, except he's got a release clause of about £100 million. So I mean, that's not to say that Benfica won't negotiate.
Yeah, negotiate, yeah.
Yeah, but, that clause is there for a reason at the same time. So he won't come cheap. I'd be very happy on bringing him in as well. He or Caicedo would be an ideal DM to bring in. And I think our midfield would be set for years. So, that'd be ideal. But
we're telling FSG to succession plan now, so we don't get called like this. But they're not listening to us. Go on, Mo, you was going to say, but
but also look, every single season we hear about these players that come out of nowhere, end up at clubs like Benfica, arrive at these clubs for £5-10 million, and then they a year later are being sold for 50, 60, 70, 80 million. So why don't we go and find these players from whether it's Ecuador or Colombia or Brazil or wherever, and snap these players up before they hit the 70-80 million pound. And yes, it might be a risk, and that player might not be your primary DM signing, but if you develop them and rotate them and just see how they develop, then that they could be a great DM backup and a great squad addition.
Lovely message.
I agree. I think the time is right to start looking at those kind of deals in a way that Liverpool haven't traditionally. I think there was always the idea of Liverpool wanted them players to develop on someone else's time. So it's like, yes, they have potential, but we want them to be ready to go by the time they get to us. We want them to kind of be ready to make the leap, as they call it. But the difference with that, like you say, is that as I said previously, we've always been so scared or almost unable to kind of make mistakes in the transfer market. If you're spending 5-10 million a player, then you can afford to make a mistake.
I was going to say, Mo, but we've made mistake by not being brave enough to make the mistakes. Do you get what I mean?
I know exactly.
So now we've got nothing to lose, kind of thing. Lovely message from Big Benz. Thank you very much. As my man just wanted to say, bless up everything you do. Amazing content, amazing panels and discussions. Alhamdulillah, my brother. Thank you very much for that lovely comment. There was Palhinha on the conversation where we're having Palhinha. Mo sent in another one. He said, defensively good, underwhelming on the ball. Would you agree with that, Mo Stewart?
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't, I think, look, our DM, I don't know what you don't think about Fabinho, but I've always said he's not amazing on the ball, even though people say, oh, Fabinho, fantastic on the ball. He's never been fantastic on the ball. He's
What
competent.
I was going to say, though, is that Palhinha's role in that Fulham team is to basically pass it to Harrison Reed or Andres Pereira.
And
So
what would his role be in ours?
they're not asking him to do X, Y, and Z. So his numbers on the ball probably aren't going to look as great as maybe they could be, but that's not necessarily because he can't do it. It's because he doesn't have to do it for Fulham. And again, there's been not good on the ball, and there's been able to find another red shirt when you're being pressed. And ironically enough, when he's being pressed, like his pressured pass percentage is actually better compared to the rest of the league than his actual pass percentage. So again, I feel like that's the kind of thing that if you're a DM, you can get away with.
John Page says Lavia money plus 52 million equals who? What does he mean by that, Mo Chatra? You're the man who with abbreviations of financials and algebras and work out. This is your job, son.
All the best.
Right. Trying to put that equation together, I think he means our evaluation of Lavia, which is 40 million.
Oh, and go for a big one.
Plus the Saudi money. So 92 million
gets you
a valuable mark for
Moises Caicedo.
Yeah, there we go.
We worked it out. See, this is why he's Mo says Florentino Luis last two games missed. Last two seasons games missed 0. That will be a factor. We will have to take into that as a factor in terms of the midfielders that we buy. Darius sends in a super says Caicedo would probably drag us into an issue with Madrid if they want him down the line, like Coutinho to Barca. We'll address that if we ever.
Yeah, we can't be scared of that.
We can't be scared of that, man. That's not a way to look at it. We're Liverpool Football Club. We can't be worried about, if we buy X, then 2 years' time, Y is going to come in for him.
And also, let's not forget the whole Coutinho Barca thing kind of worked out all right for us.
All right for us? So, yeah, if someone wants to pay
Not so good for Barca.
Fuck them. Dennis in the super says, Klopp can phone Adam Lallana and James Milner. How are you doing, gentlemen? Can you sell us Moises Caicedo? We wish it was that easy.
I mean, if Adam Lallana hasn't been doing that already, then I want to know why.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Look, I think it's fair to say there's plenty of action to be done. More in than out now. Hopefully there's no more shock outs. Hopefully there's a few more that needs to be out, like your Phillips. No disrespect to Phillips, fantastic servant to the club, but he's likely to go. Kelleher's 50-50, guys. Quickly, Kelleher, do you think would you take the money and promote one of the young prospects, great prospects, by the way? All 2-3 of our prospects are very good.
One, it depends upon how much money, because
20 million
is 20.
Yeah.
No.
You're not taking 20?
No. If he's happy to stay, I'm keeping him, because I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a goal kick for one of the Champions League teams. He's going to be a top keeper. And I feel like if we sell him for 20 now, even if we put a massive sell-on price on it, I just feel like that we're going to regret it. So if he's happy to stay, I'm happy to keep him.
Mo, you're not selling him for 20. You didn't like my valuation. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No way. The City Academy keeper went for just £1 million less than that to Burnley.
Oh, wow.
19 million. So no, by that comparison, 30 million minimum.
Well, listen, let's see what happens. I think it's the calm before the storm. I think the money from the Fabinho and Henderson deals or the first installments hit our bank by about Monday-ish, and then I think we attack next week. I think we'll have action. Key point is we need to ideally get our action in incomings done before Singapore. We fly off to Singapore next weekend. Do I
think Thursday, Friday-ish.
Oh.
Depending on time zone.
Mo. Wow, we need to get that business done then this week, because ideally he'd want one signing for sure on that Singapore trip, and that one signing for sure would be in line to start, not necessarily start against Chelsea, but in line to possibly, if needed, start the first 4 games. So that would be interesting. That would be intriguing. pretty much sums up our show. Interesting and intriguing, right, guys? I've enjoyed it. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Hope the panel have enjoyed it. Over 800 of you have stuck with us. A tale of two moles. We're going to try to make this once a month. It's very difficult to get the big boys in town, but we'll try. The support, the love that you guys have shown has been wonderful. I think we're going to have a fantastic ending. Don't worry. We've had a couple of wickets down, as I said. The cricket analogy. We're just playing out a few overs to consolidate.
Then we're going to start hitting sixes.
And then a freebie. Yeah. Freedies and Richards is going to come in the last 5 overs. And I tell you guys, we're going to have a few sixes hit out of the ground. But stay tuned. Stay tuned to the channel. Keep showing the love to the guys as well on their socials. Make sure you go check them out. They're on various platforms. I don't need to tell you about these guys. Just make sure you love, support, and keep caring. Thank you very much, guys. We will see you another time very soon. Bye-bye.